You're listening to the Why Boarding School podcast, broadcasting around the world. Join us as we promote independent boarding schools throughout the United States and Canada with our invited guests. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jeffrey Quebec.
Welcome to the Why Boarding School podcast. I'm Jeff Quebec, and today I'm joined by the Dean of Enrollment at Northfield Mount Hermon School in Mount Hermon, Massachusetts, Clair Ward. Welcome, Clair. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
So with quite a rich history dating back to 1879, Northfield Mount Hermon School has certainly evolved over the years from two separate single-gender schools merging as one coeducational school in 1971 to the consolidation onto one campus in 2005. So Clair, perhaps you can start off by giving our audience a brief overview of the number of students at Northfield Mount Hermon School, the grades you offer, where the students come from, etc.
Sure. So we at Northfield Mount Hermon, we have 630 students on campus. They represent kids from all over the world. We're represented by over 61 countries and over 35 states within the United States. So we are grades 9 through 12 in Western Massachusetts, not too far away from sort of the college mecca area of Springfield and Northampton and Amherst. Great.
And so, also, can you share with us maybe what's the academic curriculum like at Northfield Mount Hermon School?
So we are a vigorously college prep curriculum. I think we are the ideal location for those students that want to be scholar athlete, scholar artist, and balance sort of a rich academic program with all of the other passions and interests that kids should be exploring at this particular age. We have an approach to the schedule called CMAP that is more modeled after the college model, where students are carrying no more than 3 courses at a time. Obviously, they're in class for far more instructional minutes, but I bring this up because it really is a part of the signature approach to academics to allow students to spend a great deal of time going deep into subjects and not necessarily wasting their time on doing lots of subjects at one time going wide.
And so with that, is there academic support offered at NMH?
There is. We have an academic support office that has all kinds of levels of support. Sometimes students need temporary support in the form of academic coaching. Sometimes they need more specific support that might be in the form of specific tutoring, subject-specific tutoring. But we have the full spectrum of support for students and really featuring sort of their agency and independence in building those partnerships between them and their academic support, either in the form of a coach or a tutor.
Oh, that's great. And how about, Clair, could you share with us a little bit about the visual performing arts offerings at NMH?
Yeah. I'm right now, I'm actually in it, literally singing side by side with the students, getting ready for some concerts upcoming. But we have a brand new facility, a building that we call the Rack, that has both the visual and the performing arts inside of it. In addition to really top-notch professional gallery space, there are also really professional level performance and practice spaces. And what I love about this building is that it has very specific facilities for those particular areas of study and performance and expression. So for example, there's a very specific portion of the building that is dedicated to dance, both ballet as well as all of the other areas of dance, including modern dance and hip hop. We have very specific visual arts facilities, different for painting than they are for ceramics. And then for the musical side of things, specific spaces for that. So while they're all under one roof, which I completely appreciate, what I also appreciate is that where lots of schools are building flex spaces that can be dedicated for anything, we're really specific around providing the facility as well as the instruction that helps students actually develop these skills and these passions in a pre-professional way.
And it certainly seems like there's a lot of offerings too for them to choose in visual or performing arts.
Yes, a lot. The one beauty of the College Map approach to scheduling is that the students are taking 3 courses at a time, a total of 6 courses. They can also take half-credit co-curricular courses. So within the arts, for example, it might be a full credit course, it might be a co-curricular course. They can build their schedule according to what they want. Overall, Northfield Mount Hermon is offering between 150 and 170 courses a year for students to choose from. So there's an enormous amount of agency that kids have in building their high school experience.
It's extremely impressive having the number of offerings. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any sort of special signature programs that are offered at Northfield Mount Hermon School?
Yes. It's funny to me being on the road and starting to have interactions with alumni from every decade, and I'm always curious to know what the kids on campus right now talk about that's the same or different than what the alumni remember. I would say that Northfield Mount Hermon has this deep commitment that goes all the way back to its founding in 1879 around leading with intention and being committed to acting with humanity. So as part of that, we have a work job program that goes all the way back to the beginning of the school's founding, where students are actually participating in the running of the school for about 3 hours a week. It's not a huge amount of time, but it's incredibly impactful for the students. So for us, it's really developing the nuance around this concept of service. Service to humanity is really built on a bunch of different levels. Within the school, running the school, there are those levels where students are now side by side with every sort of adult work group that helps pull off this incredible program every single day. But also really figuring out ways to extend that beyond the campus of Northfield Mount Hermon. So students might have a work job that allows them to be a tour guide, a student tour guide, and they're interacting with prospective families from all over the world. Students might be in the bakery, they might be in the dining room, they might be working side by side with the custodial staff, they might be on the farm. So we are lucky enough to have a farm facility with environmental classrooms that are specific to the farm. And there's a lot of work that students do that connects the activities of the farm to the school itself, harvesting vegetables that within 2 hours are now being cut up and served in the dining room.
And so are these offerings that they vary throughout the year? Or, you have one offering, you stick with it throughout the whole year? How does that work?
A lot of it has to do with student preference. So
Okay.
there's no question that sometimes students lock into certain work jobs. I hear passionate bakers who just never want to leave the bakery, for example, or kids who enjoy the work on the farm. We have tour guides year after year. It depends on the student. So the student has the opportunity to have some individual say in that. So if they're in a work job that they love, they can request to stay in that work job all year. But they're typically semester-long commitments. So it is either 1 or 2 work jobs per year. And then obviously you can switch that up year over year. That's just one example.
Sure. And it certainly seems like some lifelong skills are learning through these work jobs.
There's no question. The lifelong skills around punctuality and responsibility, for example, but also just helping them build relationships with the adults that sometimes are doing the work behind the scenes. And we think that this is some of the most transformational experience that students sometimes have on this campus.
That's great. And Claire, how about athletics? Is every student required to play a sport each season? And also, what are some of the athletic offerings that NMH has?
Of course, there's a huge spectrum of access points for students. So we are the place for the highly accomplished varsity athlete. We are also the place for a student to try new things. And so when you take, for example, a season like, or excuse me, a sport like rowing, so our school sits on the Connecticut River. So we have a recently completed boathouse on the river. And this program is built in such a way that there really is a season that's focused on the highly experienced rowers. And then there's a season that's built around the novice rowers. So what I love about this is this concept of access points. I think too often schools really become places that can only serve highly skilled, high achievement athletes at this particular stage of their education, whereas Northfield Mount Hermon does that, but also wants to provide these access points for kids as well. I just recently heard a varsity athlete, I overheard the conversation of a varsity athlete saying that in their senior year that they wanted to actually try out for a sport that they had no experience in. And hearing the kids around them saying so many encouraging words to go ahead and try that, it was really affirming for me to think that we are a school where you can be both an expert and be well served by the athletic program, but also be a novice and well served by the athletic program. As far as the sports go, we have signature sports in all of the places that you would expect us to. Both girls and boys sports, lacrosse, basketball, ice hockey, swimming, soccer, all of those things. But then the opportunity for kids to try other sports that fall into categories that are more individual, like fencing. Wrestling is a very big program for us, and depending on the program, certainly there is a high energy around recruiting varsity athletes for some of these programs that make sure that we're building teams where students who are arriving that are already highly accomplished in the sport can continue to grow while they're here.
Well, it certainly seems like between the large offerings of sports and also different levels, there's sort of a place for everyone.
That's exactly right. And that is very NMH. I think, you don't want to do one at the expense of the other. I love this idea that somebody who's an expert in something can actually try something new, and that the school supports that not only from a programming standpoint, but the school supports that from a culture standpoint. It makes me very proud.
That's great. So we're going to do, Claire, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to learn a little bit more about the Northfield Mount Hermon School.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Do you have any questions or guests that you'd like to see on an upcoming Why Boarding School podcast? You can contact us directly through our website at whyboardingschool.com. Now, back to our show.
Welcome back to the Why Boarding School podcast. I'm Jeff Quebec, and I'm joined by Claire Ward, who's the Dean of Enrollment at Northfield Mount Hermon School in Mount Hermon, Massachusetts. And Claire, as we continue our conversation about NMH, I'm kind of curious, what's a typical school day like at NMH?
So with this college map process, we are a big campus. So we have close to 800 acres of developed land and over 1,000 acres of total property. So the campus itself is like its small city, but it's built in such a way that it's easy to get to one place from another. You can practically see those locations, which is really nice. So what we really want is for students to have the right amount of structure to their day and supervision, but also some agency and independence throughout their day. So a typical day begins, there are 4 academic periods, designated academic periods. Students are never programmed for more than 3 of those typically. And all of their academics are finished in the middle of the afternoon. There's a slight break. They move into athletics and co-curriculars. They finish that up, move into dinner, and then back into the dorms for study hall. After a certain portion of the year, and as students develop their independence successfully, then they can sign out of study hall in the dorm to go to different locations on campus, either to work on group projects or because they have a favorite study spot, or they want some additional support or from a teacher or from an academic coach. The students are back in the dorm by 10 or 10:30, and then we move into lights out. I really appreciate that the dorm is another classroom to us. So it's not just a place where students live. It actually is its own sort of portion of the NMH education. On the weekends, the students have a wide array of activities that they can join. Some of those activities are off campus, some of them are on campus. We are not a school with Saturday classes, but there's so much opportunity between athletics and arts, rehearsals, practices, and competitions and performances, as well as the other activities that we feel that students have plenty to do to stay active, and the culture of our campus is that they do. That includes being active outside at all times of the year.
So you mentioned dorm life at NMH. Can you share with us a little bit more about dorm life? What's that like at NMH?
So the dorm life, we keep the dorm groupings intentionally small. We feel very strongly that creating these smaller circles of belonging and layering these on top of them really help a student feel much more rooted and help us keep a close eye on the parent, on the student in partnership with the parents. So the students are in the dorm. There is a group of dorm staff, some that live in the dorm, some that push in for duty, but it's a very predictable, small dorm staff that the students get to know. And then something that I think is relatively unique about Northfield Mount Hermon, all of those of us who are advisees, all of our advisees are located in the same dorm. So we're connected to that dorm grouping because all of our advisees are affiliated with it. And every single night, the entire time that students are on campus, whoever is on duty is actually creating this really helpful narrative about what's going on in the dorm. So that gets posted by lights out when the students head back into the room. So as an advisor, when I wake up in the morning and grab my coffee, the first thing I'm doing is taking a look at that dorm report that is much more of narrative storytelling about the ins and outs of how students are interacting with each other, with adults, whether they're celebrating something, whether they're concerned about something. And I think this is relatively rare in the boarding school world. But I think all the time that when I'm connecting with my advisees' parents or their guardians, it's so much easier for me to collect all of these little nuanced moments to have a good sense about whether or not my advisee is in a good place or may need some support either from me or from home.
So when you talk about those connections between student and advisor, are these relationships that take place during that year and they rotate each year, from year to year, or is it remain through their whole time at NMH?
So students can lobby to keep the same advisor,
Okay.
and so those can change or they can stay the same. I noticed that a lot of students actually elect to stay in the same dorm for more than 1 year. So there is, I think, for students, a deep sense of connection on this campus. We make reference to the model as being NMH 360, which is that we are 360 degrees around the student. And not only around them as a student, but around them as a person, as a growing young adult, that we understand we've been given this big honor and privilege by the parents to be sharing in this experience with them. So we take that responsibility very seriously. So this NMH 360 is the concept that the advisor, the dorm staff, the teachers, the coaches, the music teachers, the academic support, the health center, the counselors, we're all there to keep an eye on the student and be ready to stand in and support them, to celebrate with them, to console them, whatever those sort of normal human development experiences are.
I love that expression, NMH 360, and that certainly sends a powerful message to the students and their families. That's great.
It does. Yes.
So, Claire, can you tell me a little about the meals at NMH? Are they sit down? Are they buffet? Are they required? How does that work?
The culture of this school is very much around coming together to break bread, for sure. And what I find interesting, it's interesting for me to hear your question because it hasn't really even occurred to me that we don't have required sit down, and yet that is the behavior of the school. And so it says a lot, I think, about the culture of the school. They are not served family style. We feel strongly that students have a very individual relationship with food. So we want to be sure that students are building meals in a healthy way, not only general health, but also culturally consistent and in ways that work for them. So we have a lot of offerings. All of the adults eat in the dining room with the students as well. So there's enormous adult presence, a lot of families, so employee families that sit in the dining room and eat among the students as well. I think the dining hall staff, they're very interactive. So of course our students are actually doing work job in the dining hall. So don't forget, like they are sometimes the prep chefs alongside the adult.
That's great.
So there's a lot of back and forth feedback around the food and whether or not the food is serving students' needs. And there again is another example of if, for example, the dorm duty person actually begins to hear or suspect that the student is acquiring food outside of the dining room, we're in a position then to ask questions. Are you not getting what you need in the dining room, and how can we help?
That absolutely seems like a perfect example of the NMH 360 right there.
Yes.
So would you say, is there a typical Northfield Mount Hermon School student?
Oh, I was hoping you would ask this question. I mean, if we take back to the beginning of our conversation around this, this willingness to go deep, this willingness to find your passion academically, the willingness to explore the ways in which you're already excellent, but also to figure out what your potential is in things you didn't even know about yourself. That is very deeply NMH. And so when we are talking to families or meeting students, people often ask me, well, what are you looking for in an NMH student? One of the words I particularly like to look for is this sense of curiosity. If they have curiosity about what the school world can bring for them, if they have curiosity about the parts of themselves that are yet to be explored, this is the trait that really makes a student very uniquely NMH. I am thinking about the students that I'm meeting in the process right now. They have curiosity about other kids too. They want to be in community with adults and with other kids. So this curiosity goes way beyond what new subjects do I want to study or books do I want to read. It's that, but it's a lot more. It's about how you function in the world.
Oh, that's great. So are there any cool traditions at Northfield Mount Hermon School that may be unique from other schools, or maybe perhaps there's that one tradition, Claire, that you hope that always remains part of the school?
One of the ones that I hear the alum talk about from, it doesn't matter which decade, and I hear the students on campus celebrating right now, we have something called Mountain Day. So like many schools, you have those surprise days. We do too, Heads Holiday days where students can take a break from the routine. Mountain Day is a kicked up version of Heads Holiday, I would say, where the students find out the night before that the next day will be Mountain Day, and all 630 kids and almost all of the adults actually go out by grade level and do pretty serious hiking in some cases straight up a mountain. And the food is part of the tradition, I think. They eat on the mountain. So the chili is prepared by our own dining staff. And so, this whole notion of the element of surprise, the challenge of a hike, the exhilaration of getting to the top, the tradition of being with your friends and following it up with a hearty bowl of chili is a tradition that I certainly hope always continues, considering how much our current students value it and our alumni value it as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so before we speak about admissions, is there anything about Northfield Mount Hermon School that we didn't discuss today that you'd like to mention?
No, I would just say that, I value very much the history of great partnership between the Board of Trustees and the leadership of the school to make sure that the school is always pushing itself to stay as relevant and helpful as possible to the next generation of students. There has been over $50 million invested in the campus in the last 5 years. And I only say that not because it's just about a facilities race, but rather we are building spaces that are in direct link and partnership with the program, both the co-curricular program as well as the academic side of the program. So just the opportunity to be able to name that, at a time when there's pressure on schools to build facilities that have a look and a feel, ours have a look and a feel and a purpose. And so to be able to say to a student who's passionate about science that there is a brand new state-of-the-art science facility, and right next door, a brand new state-of-the-art arts facility, that's not just about how the campus looks, that's about the functionality and meeting the needs of our super passionate students. So that's the only thing I would want to be sure that we name.
So if someone's interested in learning more about Northfield Mount Hermon School, how might they go about starting the admissions process?
Well, I'm learning from this generation of students that they spend a lot of time on the website. And, you can do absolutely every part of the process by way of the website. We are a school that still values being able to connect live with families and with students. So, for example, getting interviews scheduled and being able to talk to a family about where are you coming from, how can we build an interview and visit schedule that meets your needs from a travel standpoint. We really appreciate that opportunity to begin building the relationship in that way. Students come to campus. We are still in favor of the in-person interview. In fact, we travel all over the world interviewing on the road in addition to on campus. So we really encourage families to take advantage of that. All of that being said, we are happy to provide online interviews for families where that's just more convenient for them as a family. So I would say starting with the website and beginning to build a connection with our office, and we will usher families through every step of the process.
And what is that website address for our audience?
Sure, that's nmhschool.org.
Great. Awesome. nmhschool.org. Well, Claire, this has been great. I've enjoyed our conversation and certainly learning more and sharing stories about Northfield Mount Hermon School, NMH 360. It's been great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff, for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Claire Ward, Dean of Enrollment, Northfield Mount Hermon School in Mount Hermon, Massachusetts.
Thank you for listening to the Why Boarding School podcast. We look forward to you joining us for our next episode. Please remember to subscribe to the Why Boarding School podcast and help us spread the word. Until next time.